I heard that this is a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact and to expect the unexpected. My name is Solarah. I am a seer. I am a code keeper. I am a timeline reinstator. I am a liberator for those who have been in spiritual bondage. I am a new earth being, and I am your host today for this journey. You are very welcome here if you are an ally in this purpose of liberating souls who have wrongfully been placed in this spiritual bondage for the purpose of the tactics and the agendas of the false matrix. And I thank you for being here if you are. Let's get into it. So I heard that it's a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact and to expect the unexpected. Now, a part of this is very, how energy works. It has a ripple effect. So what is happening for you on a personal level is also a reflection of the collective energies, and what is happening on the collective level will often be playing itself out in your reality personally or internally in some form, some way, shape, or form, or some representation, even if it doesn't seem obvious, because that's how interconnected we are. So I say all of that because it wouldn't be very surprising if this is a week where some things on a collective level that we have been brainwashed into believing by the false matrix and her agendas that are not possible, that don't exist, that, in our limited programming or the limited way we've been programmed to think and to feel and to even imagine, these are things that are going to rock a lot of people who aren't aware. For many of you who fuck with me, you've probably been called, especially in the past few years, all manner of things. Maybe your whole life you've been called a conspiracy theorist. Maybe you've known many things ahead of other people. The things that are becoming mainstream information now, you've been like in a rabbit hole researching and knowing for years, for decades, and people are just waking up to it now. And 10 years ago, maybe when you began or when you were really in it and you started to share it with some of these people who are waking up now, they really would have looked at you like you had 5 heads. I know for me, I started diving into the rituals that were taking place in the music industry back in 2011. So I've been in that, information for a while now, and I remember how controversial it was to bring it up to anyone, because people, when you used to talk about celebrities back then, people would defend them like they knew them, like they were their gods, like they were infallible, like they could do no wrong. And now I've noticed the complete shift in the tide, where now this is common wisdom. Everybody knows that the entertainment industry and the music industry is built upon a lot of spiritual, ritualistic type fuckery in order to enact what it is they want, but also in order to use their art as a medium to propagate and to perpetuate various forms of what we would call MK Ultra, mind control on the masses. Okay, that's what broadcasting is really. That's the purpose of it. The TV, the radio, the internet, although all of these things are very useful in our ability to garner information and to connect to one another on the nefarious side in terms of why they were created and perpetuated by many of these unsavory beings, is really to control the narrative, control the collective consciousness, and to keep us under the influence of certain stories and limitations so that we wouldn't break out of the box. Hence the reason why so much of what it is that we've been sharing, especially post-COVID, has been under strong censorship that only now is really beginning to shift. And for some people it's not, and I would venture to say that for many of you who deal with that, that's not necessarily a platform thing, that's an energy thing that you need to deal with within your own energy field, because a lot of the blocks that people are dealing with now, especially those of you who have a voice that are here to be visible, you might be dealing with shit on platforms. Absolutely. I'm never going to deny that. I know that as a fact, but I will tell you that the source and the origin of those things are the things that have been implanted in your energy field to respond to these platforms, so that you trigger the algorithm, so that these invisibility spells and scenarios and silencing mechanisms continue to work. And I will say to you, as a person who, has managed to build my platform, not as rapidly or as vehemently as I should have been able to, had I not had to constantly dodge this fuckery, but I still have managed to do it to some extent, that the next step of what it is they try to do is to utilize beings who are watching your stuff to then try to send you shit. So it's ongoing. It is ongoing, but I also want you to know that there's nothing more powerful than your command over your energy. And even those things that try to come at you externally to try to pull you down and to shift your reality can only really do so with your consent. And your consent only comes when you lower yourself into connecting and aligning with the story they need you to align with in order to get the external manifestation to occur. In other words, if there are these trolls, because that's exactly what they are, even in the spirit, they're fucking trolls. That's the right name for them. If you have these trolls, and sometimes they're not even people, they're digitally connected, like these bots are not just bots, they are AI connected psychically. Also, everything is interconnected, so they do work on the psychic field also, not just in tech. Right? So in that way, they are also connected to siphoning entities, because that's the nature of the false matrix. I hope this is not a surprise to you at this point. If you've been rolling with me for a while, then you already know that every single thing in the false matrix was designed to siphon you on some level, to block you from being able to stop the process of harvesting, or to connect you even deeper into harvest. That's just the nature of how the false matrix was set up. Okay, so at every turn, the desire is to either get you to back out, back away, move away from your truth, move away from your power, surrender yourself in doing so, and open yourself up further for harvesting, and open your bloodline for harvesting, etc. That was the main agenda of the false matrix. So many of these energies and these entities, they're all interconnected, even if they're working through tech. Okay, so but there's nothing and there's nobody that is more powerful and has more say over your energy than you, which is why it's imperative that you come back into the fullness of your sovereignty, your authority, and your autonomy, and you realize who you are, and you rise into the power of that sacred identity, and you walk on the earth again as if that's your truth, until it does, because your ultimate protection is always that. Your ultimate protection doesn't come from external energies, entities, deities. They're there to help you, some of them that are benevolent and that are on your team. Your ultimate protection has always been rooted in you being so aligned with yourself, that you're so plugged into source, because that instantly activates protections for you on all realms, planes, dimensions, etc. So, to go back to the message, I heard that this is a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact. So on a collective level, maybe there are going to be more, exposés, more things coming out that's going to blow the mind of many people who are not really in the know, and still have this belief that some of these things aren't possible, or that they were conspiracy theories. But this is the age where everything that people were calling a conspiracy theory is being debunked at a very rapid rate, and it feels like this might be a week for that too. Now, on an individual level, in terms of how this message is coming through, for those of you who are, connecting with it, vibing with it, this is a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact because you've chosen to break yourself out of the fictions and the fables of the false matrix, and you've held on to your truth and faith. And in doing so, there's something that's getting ready to materialize, because that's what fact is. Fact is something that can be proven. And oftentimes where fiction, fable, faith, however you want to see it, become fact, something is coming into the material. Something can no longer be disputed. A lot of the time these things are disputed because they're hidden, because they can't be seen, because they're invisible, because they're not yet fully tangible. Something that you have been holding on to, conjuring, growing, magnifying in your own self, based purely upon your stubborn desire to stand and anchor in your new earth truth. There's something that is breaking forth materially for you in this coming week. Okay, so expect the unexpected, because oftentimes and I'm sure a lot of you who have been on this walk for a minute, you can, relate. A lot of the time, things break through into the material when everything is trying to show you that it's not possible. Right? So everything will try to come and tell you that it's like fight against whatever it is that you're seeking to materialize, to kind of pull you back into the energy where that thing cannot be made manifest. Right? So it's always when you're on the brink of something breaking through that it feels a lot of the time the most impossible. But that feeling of it being impossible is an indication that the energy has grown and inflated to such a place where it's about to burst, it's about to bloom, and it's like a one last attempt to get it not to. And because you are the creator of that reality, you are the magician, you are the one that is propagating, growing, pushing, magnifying that energy to birth something into existence. It's going to be your psyche that comes under attack in those scenarios. So your psyche is a connection of your mental and your emotional body kind of expressed. So what you think connected to the experiences you've been through and kind of the data you have in your fields emotionally that matches that thought. So if you've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of heartbreak, betrayal, disappointment, a lot of of the unfair timeline fuckery scenarios in the false matrix that were designed to keep you forever feeling hopeless and like you'd never break through. If you are one of those beings that has dealt with that a lot, then when this energy starts to peak in your reality because you're on the cusp of breakthrough, then the emotional data that comes up in you is the remembrance of that. And that's really, really powerful energy, because there's a lot of trauma that still lives in your field from the memory of that. But here's the beautiful thing about that. If you are able, when that occurs, to push past it anyway and say, fuck a bunch of that, that's the old data that is coming up to try to bring me back into a timeline that doesn't match. I have to break through this wall. I have to break through the ceiling, and that's all it is. It's a wall, it's a ceiling, that on the other side of it is my true timeline. Then you're able to. But I want to also say this because when I was getting ready to do this reading, I was getting my cards ready and a few flew out. And I want you to know that this card really wanted to make itself known, so I put it to the side. It says, their attacks can no longer cause damage in the same way. You are experiencing the residual energies playing out. So that's exactly what I'm talking about here, is when you come to the end of a cycle and you're getting ready to break into something bigger and all hell breaks loose and everything tries to pull you back to repeat that cycle, right? By making you feel like you'll never get out. A lot of the time what is coming up are those old and those residual energies from the past that want to play out in the simulation like they're your now. But they're not your now. They are what is coming up for you to come face to face with, to leave. In other words, it's kicking up because it's in your energy. That's been the block. Whenever you're seeking to go into a place that you haven't been before, the reason you haven't been there before is because there's some kind of barrier or block that has kept you out. And most of the time that barrier and that block is your own belief, your own thoughts, and also your own emotional story that has acted as a fear barrier, a guilt barrier, a shame barrier. Y'all know the fear, guilt, shame emotions are what I call part of the trauma trifecta, and they act as fences to keep you out of higher timelines. So when you get confronted with those emotional fences, oftentimes, especially when you're pushing through into a higher timeline, oftentimes it means it's because it's coming up out of your fields, because that's what has been the block. And you can either entertain that as being real and find yourself going back around that loop into the old timeline, or you can push past it by rising up in truth and combating the lie, or those old energies with the truth, which is, the truth is that they may very well be real, but they're also on their way out because they're no longer a part of where you're going, and they are the block, and you're no longer allowing them in your field. So this is where decree work is very powerful. But what I wanted to say about the cards that were coming out as I was getting ready is also that for many of you, this ability to do this you've improved so much that this is also why this is a week where what was fiction, what was something you were only able to grasp by faith, is becoming fact in your reality. Because you've become really good at recognizing when it's time to jump out of a timeline, and when the old story wants to rear its ugly head in the simulation, as if it's your now, as if it's your truth, as if it's like, in its magnification, it wants to intimidate you and make you feel like this is your only story. But you're realizing and you're recognizing, and also with great with great authority, but also with great discernment, you're recognizing that when that occurs, you're seeing it for what it is. You're seeing it more quickly. Maybe once upon a time when this occurred, you might have even known, especially those of you who've been hanging with me for a while, because, you know, I've said this for as long as I've, had this channel, that a cycle begins the way it ends. That's the nature of all cycles. They will always come back to the 12 o'clock mark, and at the 12 o'clock mark you will be met with the energy that was the interception for how the cycle began. You will be met with the energy, and in many cases, if that energy has grown over time and created many, many different layers of energetic realities for you, then a lot of the time, all of those experiences emotionally and mentally from those fields will kick up, because it's time for you to exit, and those fields want to hold on to you still because you're familiar. This is basic energy work. This is basic science. This is homeostasis. When something reaches a level of what it considers to be homeostasis, even if it's in a form of imbalance, when you try to break that homeostasis, the original homeostasis will always try to drag you back. The best example I will always use for this is when you start a new workout routine, or anything that breaks your regular habits that have become formed over time. It takes about 21 days of consistently repeating what it is that you are introducing as the new habit into your life, in order to form completely new neural pathways where your own biology and biochemistry will no longer fight against the change. You get it? Because you're introducing a whole new energy, a whole new cycle into something that has found, it's found a stasis. It's found what we call a homeostasis. right? So whenever you're getting ready to jump into another timeline, what you are actively doing on an energetic level is you are disrupting and disturbing the homeostasis of the timelines that you've been living in that maybe you're not comfortable in anymore, but you're familiar in them, and your energy is still familiar to them. And now you are shifting your energy to match the higher timeline and breaking that homeostasis. And the only way you can do that is by rising above the old energy fields, the old thoughts, the old feelings that catered to the lower timelines, the lower experiences. The only way you can break out of repeating them is by accessing a higher mindset, by creating a new emotional reality around what it is you desire to feel. So in other words, no despair. Despair shrinks your energy field. What causes your energy field to expand is love, is joy, is peace. So your ability to play as you rise into your timelines, to enjoy the process, to understand and overstand how things are occurring and actually start to laugh at them and not be afraid of them anymore, is what gets you, is what helps you to build the momentum of the energy faster so that you are able to materialize things with greater ease. And, you know, I did use the example of 21 days to change the neural pathways in order for you to establish a habit. That's like documented science, but that's not fact also. I'm going to tell you it's not fact because for some of you, in your power, in your divine alignment, you have the ability to materialize shit instantly. You don't get blocked anymore by the densities. Some of you are here to bring that remembrance back onto the earth about how we are able to think something, match the corresponding feeling to it, and bring it forth instantly. And most of the time, the people who are able to do that are the ones who are committed to play. They're committed to feeling good. They're committed to doing things pleasurably. Because that pleasure principle is what expands your field to bring things forth rapidly, to build the energy up with an intensity where it comes into the material planes with greater vigor. You know, because everything before it comes into the material is invisible. You might feel it, it might get really heavy, you might know it, you know, but it's not here in material until it's here. You know, it's not visible, tangible, touchable until it's actually here. But it begins and it grows and it births and it becomes all in the invisible. Okay, now, to shift trajectories a little bit on this scenario. So this is a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact. I was also picking up on fear. So we've got a lot of F words here, you know, and of course my favorite one being fuckery, right? So fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact. But there's also fear that I was picking up on. And the fear is oftentimes a result of the fuckery. And so what I was getting is that there is something or there is someone that is very fearful of this impending change, of this shift, of this bringing into the material, factualizing what it is that maybe you've been battling to bring in for the longest time because of your own ability to anchor in your faith. So many of you, you flirt with your higher timelines. And you flirt with your higher timelines like you're in a toxic relationship. And I say this not as judgment. I say this because I've done the same and I'm healing my way out of it too. We have flirted with our higher timelines like we are in some kind of twin flame, runner chaser, toxic dynamic, meaning that 1 second our timeline enters into our reality. It's there for a day, a few hours, maybe a week, maybe a month, and then it collapses because we don't have the energy it takes to sustain it. And a lot of the time, you know, we don't have the energy to sustain it because of trauma, because of attacks, which is very real, you know, but it's also because of how those trauma and those attacks have had an effect on our confidence, on our faith, on the fact that because we've dealt with this so repetitively, the loss, that we've become programmed to believe that that is all, right? So we flirt with these timelines like we're in some kind of toxic relationship, like wanting them but afraid of them at the same time. You know what I mean? Like when you feel things shifting but you don't want to get too excited because what if, you know? But really that whole shifting into that mindset of the what if and not to get too excited is when you begin to constrict your energy and begin to push out the very thing that you say you want, right? So a lot of us, you know, we've done that. We've done that, and if you've been dealing with beings who have been very committed to seeing you stay in that place of insecurity and instability, then they are noticing the shift in the anchoring in yourself and in your own power that is coming through now. That means that the change and the shift that you haven't been able to sustain in the past is an inevitability. So there's something or someone that is very fearful of this impending change. They may see it now as being inevitable. They may sense it from you because your energy is shifting, and they can feel that. Even if you haven't said anything, people notice. Or some are purposely reading your energy or employing others to do so, because that's always the case with the fuckery. And those ones in that group, some of them know the changes here because of the deadlines on some of their own contracts. They've written it on contracts that were specifically tied to you, contracts that specifically were dependent upon the siphoning of your energy and the hijacking of your timeline. So now if you are able to take back the power over your own energy field and therefore become the master again over your own timelines and your own reality, then everything and everyone else that was siphoning and depending upon the continual collapse of your true timelines to keep you stuck in the trauma loops, anyone who had contracts that were dependent upon that, those contracts they're dissipating. In many cases, I've seen this also, the grids and the foundations upon which those contracts stood are completely being trashed. Right? And I'm going to make a quick segue here and tell you that this is what Cancer energy is about. The sun just entered into Cancer yesterday, so happy solstice. Sun entered into Cancer yesterday at 0 degrees, and I was writing about this for my membership tiers on Solarah.xyz yesterday, in yesterday's Moonrise Musing, about this beauty of when the sun entered Cancer at 0 degrees, the moon had just entered Taurus and was also at 0 degrees. So now you're dealing with Cancer and Taurus at 0 degree energy, and 0 degrees is a portal. It's opening a portal into infinite possibility, but the infinite possibility that is that sign opens you up to very specifically. And when you're dealing with Cancer and Taurus, they are the signs of the zodiac that love comfort. They love feeling good in themselves. They love feeling stable. Cancer likes to feel it more emotionally. Taurus likes to feel it more in its environment. But when you have these two coming together, a very powerful portal is opening through this solstice to clear out the grids that had us committed to our own discomfort, disgruntledness, dysfunction. Because we were programmed into it, right? And we were programmed into thinking that the dysfunction and the discord, that it was normal, and that's how they got us to sign off and to create more of that shit. But it's not. It's not your divine design. And through this this Cancer season, Cancer, every time the sun enters into Cancer, anytime we have a major transit in Cancer, these are some themes that come up. But whenever the sun comes into Cancer, it's magnified, because that's what the sun does. The sun takes an energy and it grows it. It grows it, it enlightens it, it illuminates it, right? And sometimes it burns it the fuck away. And Cancer is very connected to the foundations upon which we build our cycles. So remember, I said to you at the very beginning that there is this, every single energy cycle, no matter how big it is or small, we have energy cycles that play out for a few seconds. We have energy cycles that play out for millennia. And it doesn't matter how long the cycle is. They all follow the same cyclical pattern where they enter in at what we would call 12 o'clock. And this is where, once they've ended the cycle, they exit out of 2. Now, Cancer is that inception point, that 12 o'clock point. That's the energy that begins something. Cancer begins something. It begins something in the energy, in the emotional fields, rather. First water sign of the zodiac. And when something begins to get established in the waters, it's very likely it's going to materialize. Your emotions are not as easily shiftable as your thoughts. You can think something 1 minute and someone else can come in and contradict it and change your mind in the next. But if you've had a thought that's connected to an experience that has shown you otherwise, and somebody tries to argue out of that experience, you're going to find it very hard to shift, because that experience is in your waters. It's in your waters, and it's in your earth energy now too, because you've also materialized timelines. So things become established through your emotions, through the experiences that incite an emotional pull. An emotional pull, right? And so Cancer is where that begins, an emotional pull. That's where it begins in Cancer, okay? The foundation of all of your decisions and your cycles begin upon that emotional experience and what grows from it. I hope that makes sense. So I say all of this because through Ascension, Cancer season has been so significant. And they know this in the false matrix, which is why when the North Node is in Cancer in the collective energy, it's when a lot of the fuck shit occurs on a global level to pull us emotionally and to calibrate us back into fear and under their control. And to give you an example of that, I've talked about it before. The last time the North Node was in Cancer was during the lockdown. The time before the North Node was in Cancer, we had the 9/11 situation. Okay, so every time the nodes return to Cancer, they return every 19 years. They always incite some kind of global event that rocks the world so much that it pulls us into fear. And there are oftentimes global repercussions in order to instill that fear. So think about 9/11, that's when everything in terms of traveling became fearful, right? And everything shifted in terms of security and the laws around what it is you had to do in order to go to places. Think about how that was repeated in a different way through the COVID scenario also. Okay, so they're very aware of this, and I've also said to you guys before, like the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn are the two lines that are on either side of the equator. The equator and the line of meridian, the prime meridian on the earth planes, are the two lines that separate the east from the west, which would be the prime meridian that runs through Greenwich, where time is established, right? The prime meridian separates the eastern from the western hemispheres on the earth. The equator separates the northern hemispheres from the southern hemispheres on the earth. These lines of meridian and equilibrium and these tropic lines, Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, are very important in the establishing of the collective energy that allows for certain timelines to exist on the earth planes. This is what Cancer and Capricorn are really, really important for establishing in us also through the zodiac wheel. Okay, so for those of you with very powerful Cancerian energy, you have great, when you are in alignment with your truth, a lot of you have great power in helping people to shift the very foundations upon which their dysfunction has grown. The foundations that a lot of the time we're not even aware of, because in the false matrix you were taught very purposely, because in order to keep people in loops, you have to let them be completely ignorant of the foundation of the loop. So if you can make cosmetic changes that appears to be shifting the loop somewhat, you can keep people still entrained. You can keep them still under the control of the programming, right? But the minute that people begin to suss out the root of the energy and they're able to clear out the root, then they can clear out the loop and the trauma repeating itself. And they knew this in the false matrix because they knew the repetition of trauma. The more that you repeat it, the more it damages your energy fields, the more it fucks you over from being able to create in your own power. You know, this is what many of you have been dealing with. This is why I do what I do, because I got fucked off with all of this fucking love and light, law of attraction, law of this, law of that, that completely bypassed the fact that so many people weren't able to do the very things that they're claiming are universal laws, because A, they're under invisible spiritual bondage, B, they're being siphoned, and C, they've been through so much repetitive trauma that it's really difficult for them to break past the densities to begin to call in the very things that, yes, technically all of these laws connect you to, and you should be able to do it like this. But only people who A, have no trauma were able to do it like that, or the people who were siphoning off of other people. That's the truth. So for me, I'm dedicated and have been from the beginning to working with people who are actually really fucking powerful, and they're only awakening to this because you haven't been able to materialize this because of the profound trauma and the trauma loops you were purposely imprisoned in by the false matrix because of who you are. Right? So they knew in the false matrix that if they could traumatize you, get you in a loop, and get that trauma to repeat time and time again, they would muddy your waters and make it impossible for you to pull in the things you want. Your mind would be able to connect with it, but your own desire for that thing and believing that you couldn't have it because of your trauma would always make sure that it got redirected to someone else, or that your timelines would collapse. And I'm saying to you now that as the sun enters into Cancer, and as the moon met Cancer, they're both at the 0-degree gates. This Cancer season, every Cancer season, is about the regridding of your emotional body, should you choose to accept that. But this year, it's magnanimous, because the very collective emotional grid that fueled our own dysfunction and distortion is in such disrepair that this Cancer season is coming through to like wipe it out. And how is it doing that? It's first of all doing that in all of us. It's first of all helping those of us who've been traumatized for the purpose of siphoning and keeping the earth at this lower frequency, lower resonance of trauma and fear, because of how much we were being traumatized and how big our emotional energy was to affect the grids of the earth and the collective energy. For those of you who've been doing that work of healing yourself and reclaiming the truth of who you are and shifting your emotional energies back into joy and connecting with who you are, and you've been seeing glimpses of your higher timelines, this Cancer season is going to be really big for helping you, if you're open to it, to like completely clearing your waters of these things that have contributed to the stop-start, because you still weren't seeing exactly how and why certain things were pushing you out of the timelines. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this is a week where fiction, fable, and faith collide to become fact. And if this is your message, then you must walk in certainty and faith. to affect this shift. You must walk in certainty and faith. You must know who the fuck you are. You must be stubborn about it. You must let nothing, nobody, and no one try to take you out of that mentally, emotionally, physically, however, spiritually, right? And the other message that was coming through is that you must be militant about keeping your energy clear. And when I say keeping it clear, I mean keeping it clear to the point where you are clear to be who you are. Okay? And that doesn't mean that things are perfect and that shit doesn't try to come in, but you must know, you must be very discerning of when things aren't yours, because a lot of the time these energies like to come in to bring you into a lower place, to bring you into despair, so that you think that something is a problem when it's not. The only problem is that you need to tell that energy, that entity, that attachment to get the fuck out of your energy. And you'll find your whole frequency changes and you come back into yourself, because that's a trespasser. It's not you, it's a trespasser. So be very aware of where things are still seeking to trespass into your energy and play and pass off as if they are you, or there's something that you need to be paying attention to, when you don't need to do anything but exercise, banish, and have these things leave your energy for good. Yes? Okay. Let's go into the karmic fuckery deck. Family abuse card is showing up. Many of you are breaking out of these really gnarly ancestral family grids you've been stuck in across time. I've been talking about this for a minute. This is really where Cancer season is excelling, especially as we come up in mid-July, July 10th to be exact, to the full moon in Cancer. Is going to be very, very big for trashing these ancestral grids that were designed in the false matrix through their family structures to scapegoat certain members and to use certain members as a huge fucking battery for the dysfunction, the proliferation of dysfunction in the whole family, by keeping them wounded, down, hurt, picked upon, and siphoned. Okay, so we have energy transference, spiritual black market things, fake friend. We do have family abuse coming out, and we also have they lied to spiritual practitioners. And at the bottom we have marionette action or puppetry. This is somebody who has, and this is not just somebody, this is more than one person, but whoever it is, that this is a repetitive scenario that you've had going on with, whether throughout this lifetime, and for many of you it's like throughout lifetimes. This person has been very good at pulling your strings, especially emotionally, and getting you to do things in accordance with how they've programmed you. And a lot of the time beings like this program you through dark psychology, right? So they know how, if they say one thing or if they incite a certain emotion, that the likelihood of you responding to them in this way is higher. It's a form of deep-seated emotional manipulation that people who like to abuse without other beings knowing that they're abusing like to do. They like to manipulate them using psychology. Okay, and there's somebody here who has manipulated you using psychology and has been able to have you kind of like a little puppet, right? And they've lost that ability for most of you, and so directly. And so for some of you, the way that they've been at work is through introducing other people into your life that are designed to get close to you for the purpose of continuing that legacy. And how do they continue that legacy? Well, how about this is how it often happens. You remove yourself from the abuser, the one who has been causing you to go against yourself. And oftentimes they do that. All forms of abuse are designed to get you to away from your own sense of power, your own sense of self. So a lot of the time abusers will make you feel like there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with how you think. There's something wrong with how you feel. There's something wrong with how you act. There's something inherently wrong with you. And you are very lucky that your abuser, would even deem your company as being acceptable, or that they would even want you in their lives. Like, they're doing you a huge favor. Like, they have this whole story and narrative that they wrap you up into to make you feel like you're less than. Right? So when you begin to wake up and you begin to move away from that, and you disengage from them and their behavior, and you start to develop your own counter thoughts, counter feelings to everything they try to program you into, especially if it's a long time thing. With family abuse, it's really difficult because literally you were programmed into this from jump. You don't know anything other than the narrative that they programmed you into. It's a very, very difficult thing to break out of, with many, many layers to work through, right? Now, how these fake friends and manipulators tend to enter into your reality is that they will be very, very flattering. They will come in and they'll be so nice to you, and they'll really build you up. Right? They'll build you up, and maybe they'll offer to help you, or, maybe you have things that are in common with them that they will really try to hone in on, to try to force intimacy. That for many beings who have been through trauma, the minute that somebody tries to incite that intimacy, it feels good, because for so long you haven't had people who really want that with you, and so you become you're more susceptible and vulnerable to being drawn in by it. And abusers also know this, right, when they're doing it consciously. And so they send these people into your life that get past your barriers pretty quickly, because, well, a lot of the time you're still in a state of vulnerability. And I don't say that from a place of being it's not a thing of judgment that you're in a place of vulnerability, because, to be completely honest, that vulnerability is also one of your most beautiful traits, because that vulnerability is actually synonymous with your openness of heart, and your openness of heart is what allows for you to love so deeply. So please don't ever think that just because some fuckers like to exploit and take advantage of your beauty that it's ugly. It's not. It's just that these are people who like to exploit. It doesn't change the fact that that's still a beautiful part of you. But they like the fact that you're open, that it makes you more vulnerable because of what it is you've been through. And so they will implant themselves into your reality, and it will feel really good to have an ally, right? It will feel really good to have an ally until they begin to cause you to question yourself. But, all relationships are here to challenge us, because we all have things we need to work on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a lot of the time, these things that they start to hone in on with you tend to be the very same points and accesses that your abusers used to pick on you for. And it takes you directly to that feeling of overwriting even your own logical way of breaking things apart and discernment, because it pulls you directly back into the old emotion that you've become very used to, and it pulls you back instantly into reclaiming the way that you were taught to think about yourself. It pulls you in very quickly because it's connected to the original story that is bigger in your energy than the new story of empowerment, your true story of empowerment that you're just tuning back into. So We have energy transference and spiritual black market things, fake friend, family abuse, and spiritual practitioners. Okay, so they lie to spiritual practitioners. I already mentioned before that some of these beings are able to see what it is that's happening for you because they are illegally looking into your energy, and it's always illegal if you haven't given them consent. Let me make that very clear. People who go into other people's astrological charts without that person's permission, have cards pulled on them without their permission, that is a spiritual crime. Okay? Oof. I have a candle and it just went like that. It's a spiritual crime. It's akin to going into someone's private documents on the earth planes that you haven't had permission to go into. I know in the false matrix, they make it seem as if it's nothing because the whole point is to make you think that spiritual trespassing isn't a big deal and it doesn't even exist. But it's a real thing, right? So beings who are getting readings done on you and they haven't asked your permission for your energy to be pulled. People who are looking into your birth charts and they haven't asked your permission to do so are all violating your energy. And it's also a way where they can begin to connect with your energy in order to begin to transfer. Because now they have information about who you are, that oftentimes people who lack integrity oftentimes are here to exploit people in any case. Right? So, energy transference, spiritual black market things, they lie to spiritual practitioners. Okay, so this lying to spiritual practitioners is not going to get most of these people very far anymore. And if anything, for some of them, it's going to rile up the wrath of those who they're lying to. You shouldn't lie to a spiritual practitioner, period. Even whether they work for, in integrity or whether they work in banefulness and malevolence. It's just something you probably don't want to do. Something you don't want to do. I'm going to leave it there. Okay. Your path is clear. I'm loving this. Your path is clear. So don't be fooled by the illusions within the simulation of things falling apart and shifting, and you thinking that because they feel familiar, because those are the things that are collapsing, that in some way you're blocked. You're not. Your path is clear. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that are seeking to block you, but the things that are seeking to block you are only going to really work as you succumb to the emotional and mental states that are needed for those blocks to actually root. Okay, so even when it comes to these energies and entities that would try to attach and pretend like that's your emotion in order to connect with your energy, siphon, transfer, whatever the fuck it is that their game is, the minute you begin to understand and feel and realize that ain't your energy, and you remove those things, you can send them back to source, to be dealt with, and call karmic justice on those beings that sent it to you, etc. Do what you feel you need to do to bring harmonious balance for all beings involved. The minute you do that, you'll feel your energy shift because your path is clear, and your path is clear because you're keeping it clear. It's not clear because all of a sudden you have nothing that's trying to obstruct you. It's clear because you're aware and you're not falling into fear, and you're just like pushing things away as they come. Okay, we do have Karmic Father. I will say another two cards that came out very prominently as I was getting ready was a Karmic Aunt and a Karmic Cousin. Okay, and they were coming out with these two cards too, energy transference and spiritual black market things. So even if they don't come out here, that's fine. But just so you know, I'm just remembering that now too as I'm going into the deck. All that they tried to do to you is being reversed. All that they tried to do to you is being reversed. We do have coven or secret society activity. Surprise, surprise. Yes, and we have notable families and names have benefited off of your astral imprisonment. Okay, so this should be no surprise to those of you who've hung with me for a while. A lot of the times when you guys are being are being energetically set up to be harvested and siphoned, especially by family members who are involved in these covens and secret societies, you know, and they are all covens and secret societies, the fraternities, the sororities, all of these things in the false matrix that were designed to help people to rise in their professions had spiritual consequences for those who in the bloodline were set up to be one of the main batteries to keep the family in dysfunction and feeding the ancestral entities. It was so much bigger than that. It was because you weren't only a battery that was being used by your family. You were someone who, when they signed up to do their own individual contracts, they opened you up to become a part of a whole harvesting and siphoning network, which is why some of you might see from time to time, or you might recognize that you might have a main person who you know, or main 2 people, 3 people for some of you in your family who you know have targeted you, or who you know the agreements they've made have made you a target. But then you also may look out into the wider world and see beings who are considered celebrities, you know, in all industries, politicians, whatever. And you may begin to notice your energy, but you might start to think, well, how is that possible? They don't know me. For some of you, these assholes show up to you in your dreams also, right? And the reason for that is because they are plugged into your energy. They are siphoning. They're siphoning because when you got when your energy field got opened up through the contracts that people close to you, oftentimes family members, made, then it puts you into a siphoning and a harvesting grid and a network where all of these societies at all levels begin to draw upon your energy, draw upon the beings whose batteries are really, really powerful. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into that. I will be going into this more deeply in the near future. But I do want to touch on it now because it's something that when I've been, you know, doing polls and you know, getting things together for what it is I'm doing moving forward, it's something that's been coming up a lot. So it's something that needs to be spoken about, these harvesting networks and grids that you become plugged into that give access to wider networks and to other industries, etc. Okay. Karmic justice is here. Sit back and watch. And I keep on hearing I'm supposed to share this, but I'm kind of like, I'm not of 2 minds. I'm just a little bit on the shy side sometimes when it comes to talking about this stuff. But I did share it with people on my platform on Solarah.xyz this past Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and share it here. So I'm very passionate about the exposing of these spiritual crimes and liberating people back into the truth of their contracts, their akashics, their destinies, their true timelines. It's what drives me, and it drives me because of my own personal experiences with all of this and how long it's taken me to get to the bottom of all of this stuff. And when I did, I remember beginning this and feeling so alone and like being so lost. Like I didn't even know where to begin, and I didn't even know where it was coming from, and I was so afraid and yada yada yada. And when I began to get to the bottom of this stuff and I began to share on this channel, the whole point was to help other people to bypass those years, that decade I spent of not knowing, not being able to see anything or have any kind of help. Now, so my desire is to help people get free. But in the past, like since I began this channel, and I've gotten so much feedback from people about their own experiences, my fire began to grow, and my desire to actually get real-time justice for survivors of spiritual abuse. It's become something that has really established itself in what it is I know I'm here to do on the earth planes too. And as such, I am at work now to establish an organization. It's going to be what we call a DAO. I won't go into it too much right now, but it will have a board of trustees, et cetera, and ways to manage the funding that comes through, because I believe it's time for people who've been through these kinds of situations to be able to fully be resourced to get back everything that they need to be who they are. And that's a huge issue a lot of the time with financial blocks. So a part of what it is I'm building is designed to help to resource people that need that help, and also to begin to get this information out into the mainstream and to begin to shift the judicial systems on earth to recognize these crimes for what they are. So if in any way you would like to assist in that, if you would like to invest in that, if you have contacts or tools that you know would be useful in the establishment of that, then please do send me an email, solarahspeaks@proton.me, and we can set up a meeting. Okay? Alrighty, I said it. Up your nighttime protection work. So this would be coming up because you might be being targeted, not only just through your dreams, but 1919 on the clock as I say that, but also 1919. You've got a lot of codes coming back in right now, especially through this Cancerian window where I can never say this word very well. The heliacal rising of Sirius is occurring in the next 2 weeks or so. And this is where a lot of your solar codes that are connected to your collective, you're thriving here in the collective, those start to come through. Okay, and so be very, and the pinnacle of that tends to be the 8-8 portal. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. Nighttime protection, like I was saying, it's not just about your dreams, but it's also just about you being in an unconscious state and therefore more open to influence. So one of the best ways to counteract that kind of thing is to have what you need playing in the background as you sleep that programs you into your truth. So for example, with all my decrees, well, I haven't done, I think the most recent 4 I've done, but all my other decrees have audio versions of them also. And even when I create decrees for myself on a personal level, oftentimes I will create an audio version and I will loop it at nighttime because nobody is programming me but myself. No one else is programming me in my unconscious state but my own motherfucking voice. Okay, and then sometimes I'll layer that also with other frequencies I trust, right? But the main thing next to me that I'm listening to is my voice on repeat, declaring and decreeing over myself who the fuck I am and what the fuck it is I will tolerate. Okay, so I have the audio files if you want to do that too. But what I also recommend to people, and people do this too and have gone back to me, they will still use my decrees if they want, or they will write their own. And I will always say it's really powerful to write your own decrees. You can use mine as a template also, but to write your own decrees is also very powerful. But for those of you who can't or don't have the time, or for whatever reason, then even taking my decrees and recording them in your own voice and having them play. And if you don't have time and you want to use my voice, the audio, you can do that also. But I'm telling you, there's something really powerful with when you're in your unconscious state, having your own voice put you back into proper alignment. Okay. What other people think about you isn't your business. What do you think about you? So part of this thing that you're going through this week especially is really being very rooted and stubborn in your true thoughts about yourself as they align not only to who you are and what you're worth, but what you deserve, how you deserve it, when you deserve it, etc. In other words, it's not a time to look at what you think is possible based upon the limitations of your own programming and what it is the false matrix wanted you to believe is possible. It's time for you to look at yourself as a multidimensional high frequency being and state what it is that you know that you are and what it is that you're calling into the earth. In other words, it's time to stop looking entirely at what it is you believe is possible because of what the false matrix has taught you. And when you start to realize that every single thing they told you was possible is a lie, then you can begin to really tune into the multidimensional access that you have to bring all infinite things into material possibility and to do it instantly. And some of you are here to reclaim that truth, to reclaim that memory. And your biggest block is going to be not necessarily other people right now saying things to you, but the programming you've picked up on through social engineering, where other people were used to make you think that only certain things were possible because of things that have occurred for them, things that have occurred in the false matrix, or the things that the false matrix has told us as a collective are possible. There's no such thing as anything being supernatural. What they call the supernatural was there to make it feel as if it's not touchable, to make it feel as if it is out of reach, to make it feel as if it's so above you, when really that's your nature. And for many of you, it's time, especially since this full moon in Sagittarius, this gate between the full moon in Sagittarius to the full moon in Capricorn is helping you to get rid of those energies, voices, things that want to keep you out of your infinite reality on earth because of the programming that's been designed to limit you. Oh wow, we're over an hour. Let's go into my herbal deck. Let's see what herbs want to support you this week. Working with green, I'm seeing a lot of green. My deck is green, and I'm very drawn all of a sudden to the green stones on my desk. I have aventurine and malachite. That would be really working on tuning and programming your heart space into not only receiving, but also in clearing out certain things that... sorry, all the cards were dropping now. Clearing out certain things that have been a block to your expressing the fullness of your shine. So like, for example, a lot of the time, the reasons why we don't show up in the world at full strength is because we've been taught that there's something wrong with us. Again, those abuse templates, and we have internalized that shame to the point where we don't need anyone else telling us to be quiet. We do it for ourselves. It's time to push past that in your heart space. And a lot of the times, the way that's going to come up is through triggers, right? So again, the way something exits is the same way it will leave. I'm going to give you a practical, real-time example. So I'm over on Threads, right? I'm on Threads now, and you know, I've been more active this week, and I've been really feeling like I need to get out this information about spiritual crimes a little bit more, and to start to break things down, definitions, etc., and to begin to put it out there on that platform. So that's what I've been doing this week. And as many of you know, especially those of you who've been with me from the beginning, you'll know that I am not a YouTube partner. I don't do YouTube ads. If ads show up during my content, it's not because of me. I don't get any money from YouTube partnerships. And the reason for that is, well, there's a few things. For one thing, I'm very aware of how these platforms utilize other people's information for data collection. And for another thing, I knew that if I monetized, I wouldn't be able to be as spiritually direct and honest as I wanted to, because there are extra filters that your content goes through when you align yourself with those ads, and it's easy for them then to demonetize you. So I decided not to do that from experience on my other platform, and also from divine guidance. So I don't connect with that, right? And for another thing, I'm not a person who is shamelessly plugging myself. I have every right to. I'm really fucking good at what I do. I have every right to do that, but I don't. And I try to find a real balance between, charging for my things and making it accessible to people who don't have the funds. That's really important to me. Right? So I'm not one of these people who is like shamelessly marketing myself, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, in fact, I find it really difficult to do that. That's like I find it difficult. So when I put myself out there, which is like even just now when I said the thing about, that was hard for me. You get what I'm saying? So that's something I'm still working on in myself. So when I put myself out there and I say, oh, book with me, yada, yada, that's big for me. Okay, I know I have to do it. I should do it. It shouldn't be anything given my skills, but it still is difficult for me because of my own internal stuff. So on a few days ago, I decided to add, my decrees and stuff, the links to my decrees and one-to-ones and everything at the end of a very long, comprehensive thread at the very end. So you had to read through the whole thread to get there. And some asshole showed up and said, I find it so funny how you people, give us all this information and then you want us to book your class. And then he's like, LMFAO, fuck off. That's what he says to me on my thing after reading all my information. And I was just like, I was taken aback by it at first. And then I was just like, I'm not even offering a class. I'm offering free decrees and access to more resources for free on my YouTube. And then my one-to-one. So I'm just like, I'm not offering a class. I wrote to him. I was like, well, I'd like to sign up for my class. I didn't know I was offering one. And I called him out. I said, your parasitic energy isn't welcome here because people like you like to eat the free information and the wisdom that beings like me have gone through a lot to be able to get to and to be able to share with the collective. And then you begrudge us the right to be fed to. And your parasitic energy is not welcome here, because he finished it by saying, but thanks for the inspo. I said, my work is not for your inspiration. And I removed him, and then I guess whatever happened, he removed himself also, which is like whatever. But I say all of that because I had built myself up to share that, right, on my threads, to be like, yeah, share your one-to-ones. You never share your one-to-ones. You share your free decrees, your YouTube, and let them know that they can book with you one-to-one also. And I did that, and that was me pushing past the programming that is designed to make me feel small or to play small or to feel like I'm not deserving and all of that other shit that I'm sure all of you guys can relate to also, right? I had to push past all of that. And so the minute I pushed past it, here comes the simulation bringing somebody in to try to make me feel as if I shouldn't be pushing past. And this is why I speak up on these things, not because everyone deserves a response, but at that moment where you've pushed past something energetically that was a barrier that you've been told you're supposed to stay out of, stay small, stay in the lane we want to assign you to. The moment you push past it and you start to feel resistance, and it comes at you in such a real way, speak on it. Put that thing in its place. State who you are. Do it. Because then you're ending it. You're saying, nope, I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to come into agreement with what it is you have to say, because coming into agreement with what it is you have to say puts me back into the very box I just pushed myself out of. And that's what the simulation does. The minute you seek to push yourself into a higher representation of who you actually already are, right? The minute you seek to do that, there are always these players and these energies that come in to try to put you back into your place. They're part of the structure of the false matrix simulation. Push the fuck against them. Call them out. Tell them who they are. Make them feel stupid or embarrassed in the same way they try to make you feel stupid or embarrassed for rising into your truth. Not out of malice, but out of balancing, bringing things back into rightful balance. and to cause them to rise also, because hopefully that person will walk away and start thinking, she just said that my energy was parasitic, and I'm here reading her stuff about energy harvesting, and I'm here reading it because I feel I'm a victim of it, but yet I'm here trying to energy harvest her. Maybe the light bulb will go off and they'll be able to reclaim themselves in truth and in power too. The false matrix wants you being silent, moving away from things, keeping false peace. Fuck the false matrix and its false peace. We ain't doing that shit no more. So that is an example of what occurs when you try to push yourself out of a box that you've been placed into. And it can be very small and subtle, like what I'm telling you. It's small. It's not a big deal to do what I did. But did you see the minute I did it? Opposition. Opposition. Okay, so herbs. Motherwort. Drives out melancholy, strengthens the heart in the healing of the mother wound. Self-acceptance, it nourishes and it strengthens its mama bear energy. It protects women and children, and it protects pregnancies. It's very womb healing. It's wonderful for yoni steaming. So I think that motherwort coming out as the sun moves into Cancer is perfect, because motherwort is a beautiful herb for working with opening your heart, especially for those of you who were shut down by very oppressive, distorted feminine energies, whether they came directly through your mother or whether they came through the false mothering programmings of the false matrix that moved and worked through many women of authority and through the feminine energy of men in authority too. Okay, so motherwort is great for that. It's not a herb I would recommend drinking in a tea. It's very bitter, unless you're using it as a precursor to eating. So if you're using it as a digestive bitter, you can create a very strong tea and take a few sips before you eat. Motherwort will help your digestive system, your liver, your gallbladder to be primed for food, right? But in terms of like working with it ritually, very powerful for women, yoni steams. Working with it with water is very powerful too, even if you use it in a bath. I'm guessing you could smoke motherwort. I haven't smoked that one before, but I'm guessing you could smoke it too. But yes, very protective of your feminine essence and very protective of your inner child too. Okay, and also protective of the things that you are growing, and with womb healing, protective of that space that you need to, you need to protect while you're growing things, or while you're remembering things, or while you're reconnecting to your gifts, and practicing them. All of these things need to be protected until you become confident in who you are, or confident in what it is you're sharing. So motherwort is very good for that. We do have anise seed, or aniseed, not to be confused with star anise. Aniseed, when you purchase it, it looks very much like fennel, and it has a very, very strong licorice scent to it, and it's very delicious by itself as a tea. It is an aromatic herb that works as a digestive, which means that it's great for eating, for having after a meal, or especially after a heavy meal. It has carminative effects, which means it helps to dispel gas. It helps to get things moving. So on a practical level, aniseed is beautiful as a post-meal digestive. And in many cultures, I think in the Far East and in India also, they will give you aniseed and cardamom tea after meals to help with the digestive process. So beautiful like that. For those of you who also work with Anubis does tend to like aniseed as an offering. But aniseed is very powerful for the removal of mental magic, for the removal of those thought forms, those projections, those things that are supposed to run in your mind and make you think that they are your thoughts towards yourself or other people. Very powerful for breaking illusions around gossip, illusions around yourself that other people want to propagate because they have their own issues with you or whatever. Aniseed is very powerful for breaking apart those mental energies. Powerful also for uncrossing and getting rid of the evil eye, because oftentimes the evil eye is also comprised of people sending their nasty thoughts towards you because of their own issues, right? And as such, very powerful for spirit communication, which makes sense because when your channels are clear of excess mental energies that don't belong to you, your channel becomes clear too. Okay, so we also have chamomile. Lovely. Chamomile is a solar herb, right? We're entering into the solar quarter of the zodiac wheel as we enter, as the sun enters into Cancer all the way through to the end of Virgo. It's kind of like the section of the zodiac wheel that deals a lot with both our solar and our lunar energies, right? The balancing of them, opening up with Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and then we'll move through Leo, which is ruled by the sun. So the balancing of our light force energy works through this 3-month period on the zodiac wheel, okay? And how we use our light and how our light is used and siphoned from us too, right? So chamomile is deeply healing. It's protective, but it's very protective of your success. It's protective of you as you put yourself out there and you go out and you reclaim what is rightfully yours. You have a right to shine. Right? You have a right to shine in the fullness of who you are. You have a right to be seen. You have a right to be supported in what it is you came here to do on the earth planes. You have a right. And in the false matrix, every time you try to stand up in that truth and push for your birthrights, the simulation tries to push you back. Fuck a bunch of that. Chamomile is really powerful for helping you to heal around the wounds of invisibility and being pushed back and shamed for being who you are. Chamomile in the natural is also a really beautiful one for digestive. It works by calming the nervous system and putting you into parasympathetic mode, which allows for you to digest more easily and also allows for you to be relaxed enough to sleep. So chamomile is a very good herb for helping you to wind down. And it's a very gentle herb. It's so gentle that you can even give chamomile to newborns, right? So it's a very beautiful, it's very powerful in its own right, but it's very gentle and it's very nurturing and protective of things that are delicate and new and vulnerable and growing. That's what the spirit and the essence of chamomile is. It's very nurturing to the solar plexus also in all ways, helping to relight the fire within your solar plexus, helping you to protect it, helping you to work through the internalized emotions and pain that especially is established in your solar plexus through childhood wounding, right? Chamomile is great for sleep and meditation for the reasons I've already given. And it's also good for guarding against psychic and magical attack. And the reason I would say that's the case is because psychic and magical attack work best when your nervous system is in fight or flight, or when you're in survival mode, when you are relaxed, when you're at peace, when your nervous system is disarmed and you're feeling good in yourself. It's very difficult for those kinds of attacks to enter into your fields and to stay. Okay. It also says here that chamomile is great for gambling, for increasing your luck in what they call gambling. So take that as you will. That's what it's been used for. A lot of people who go and play in casinos and stuff will wash their hands with chamomile water, or they'll wash their hands in certain gambling waters that will include herbs like chamomile or vanban before they gamble. Chamomile is a solar herb, but elementally it's also connected to water. So very powerful for clearing out those heavy energies that have polluted your emotional fields and stopped you from shining or pursuing your right to shine. So with this week being a week about fiction, fable, faith colliding to become fact, that's going to happen as you stand your ground and are confident in yourself and you're not afraid to rise and shine. And chamomile is very beautiful for doing that. And in terms of how to work with it, chamomile is again another one that is beautiful as a tea. Okay, so really lovely tea, chamomile, and you can drink it before bed. It's also a really great tea to to infuse in the sun. So the way you would do that is you would use like not boiling water, like lukewarm water, and pour it over your chamomile. And if you're going to add your sweetener or any other herbs, you can do that. And then you can put a lid on it and literally put it on the windowsill and leave it for a couple of hours in the sun, and call upon the power of the sun to infuse the chamomile, to wake the chamomile up, to activate it into its power. And, speak over the water, create the matrix within the water that receives the energy of what the chamomile is putting out there, which you can do just through your voice and intention, and leave it in the sun for that energy to grow. And then be very consciously aware of the elixir, the very powerful solar elixir that you've created once you remove it from the windowsill and you ingest it. Okay, so chamomile is also a really great herb to work with in solstice energies. Alrighty, so that's what I have for you. I hope that this reading, these downloads, this guidance, these pep talks were helpful and insightful, and sorry about that. And for all information on how to work with me, I will put that information in the description box below and the comment section. For those of you who are interested in my decrees, they are for free or by inspired donation. I thank those of you who do donate. It makes a huge difference. It allows for me to continue to show up and do the work that I've been assigned to do here on the planet at this time. For those of you who are interested in assisting me, with your expertise, your investment, with creating this initiative to highlight spiritual crimes and to resource and to help those who've been the victims of such criminal activity in the spirit, then please make sure to shoot me an email, solarahspeaks@proton.me. If you would like to connect with me on a daily basis, you can do so over on my platform, solarah.xyz. That is where I publish every day my daily alchemy. And for those of you who are interested in getting more access, there are paid membership tiers there also. But I wish you a beautiful week. I wish you a beautiful week. For those of you who have, really been doing the work of recovering yourself, may this truly be the week for you, where fiction, fable, and faith become fact. I will see you again soon. Be well.